warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Saigal. Our top focus on the show tonight. After the United States of America strikes on 3 nuclear sites on Iran, the question we ask tonight: where is Iran's enriched uranium stockpile? With Iran claiming that they had moved the material prior to the strikes. We will also tell you the American bases in West Asia, which is in Iran's radar. Also on the show, we will tell you how Pakistan has gone from pushing US President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize to now condemning him for bombing Iran. Finally, what are Russia's stakes in the Iran-Israel war? While on one hand, Russia has condemned US strikes on Iran, on the other, it has made it clear that military support to Tehran is not on the table. All that and a lot more lined up for you on the show tonight. Let's get you started. And with breaking news coming in, the US now believes that Iran may launch a retaliatory strike on American forces stationed in the West Asia within the next 48 hours. 2 senior US officials told Reuters that while Washington is still pursuing a diplomatic off-ramp, the threat of a direct Iranian response looms large. One of the officials, speaking on condition of anonymity, said Iran's counterstrike could be imminent within the next day or two, a span of 48 hours. Tensions have sharply escalated since US airstrikes over the weekend targeting Iranian nuclear and military infrastructure, reportedly using precision-guided bunker buster munitions. US President Donald Trump has now issued a stern warning. Any retaliation by Iran against US assets will be met with force far greater than what we've used so far. In anticipation of an Iranian response, the US military has fortified its defenses in the region. General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, confirmed that American forces in Iraq, Syria, and other parts of West Asia have been placed on an heightened alert. And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is now joining us live in Gravitas. Hi, Susan. Tell us more about how we are now learning that Iran may attack bases, US bases in West Asia in the next 48 hours. And of course, this comes after Trump issued a stern warning to Iran, saying that accept peace or more lethal targets coming your way.
Yes, a social media account on X affiliated with the IRGC put a picture up a few minutes ago of cruise missiles saying that these are coming your way. We do have those quotes from unnamed U.S. officials who believe that any retaliation by Iran could happen in the next 24 to 48 hours. As you mentioned, likely targets include Iraq and Syria, but they're not limited to that. Many are watching in and around the Strait of Hormuz to see whether or not the United States would Iran would ultimately want to harm U.S. naval forces near the Strait of Hormuz as well. Now, it's also important to note that cybersecurity threats are also a possibility, but nonetheless, in less than 24 hours ago, the United States issued a warning to its citizens all over the world, saying that they are in harm's way, essentially, and to really exercise caution because of these possible retaliations on the part of Iran. Now, to what extent Iran wants to retaliate, that's the big question. If the extent of the damage is not that much in U.S. nationals in Israel or around the world in the Middle East, remember some 40,000 troops are stationed in the Middle East region, close proximity to Iran. If it's just against installations, then some analysts believe that that is a potential to defuse the situation. But nonetheless, a stern warning by U.S. officials. And of course, this warning comes as President Donald Trump is expected to meet with his National Security Council team at around 1 p.m. local time, which is in about an hour and a half from now.
Right, Susan, thanks for getting us the latest on this. We'll, of course, be tracking this very closely. American targets are now squarely in Iran's crosshairs. Washington knows that the clock is ticking. American bases in West Asia is on a high alert. U.S. warships and fighter jets are on standby. Now, the big question being, when and where will Iran attack?
Iran and Israel are locked in a deadly battle. Now, the US has entered the fray. American stealth bombers dropped massive bunker busters. Operation Midnight Hammer targeted Iran's most fortified nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. President Trump hails the operation as a complete success.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons.
But as the dust settles, US intelligence and Pentagon officials are bracing for the inevitable, Iran's retaliation. Iranian military issued a chilling warning to Trump that you may start this war, but we will be the ones to end it.
This crime and violation of dignity will not go unanswered, by God's grace. In response to this American mistake, too, we will take firm action appropriate to their aggressive move.
The warning isn't empty. In 2020, Iran had launched a series of missile attacks on US facilities in Iraq. Days after the US assassinated top Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani. Now, across the region, more than 40,000 American troops are on high alert. The US has stationed two massive aircraft carriers, USS Gerald Ford and USS Carl Vinson, in the region, while the third USS Nimitz is rushing to the region.
Well, I guess you have two kinds of wars. You have an Iranian response directly against American assets. Geography is destiny. We have 40,000 troops deployed within range of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles. They have thousands of those. 2,500 troops in Iraq, probably less than 1,000 in Syria. They're vulnerable.
The countries with the most US troops include Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. These installations serve as critical hubs for air and naval operations, regional logistics, intelligence gathering, and force projection. Experts say that despite the intense fighting over the last 10 days, Iran still maintains a massive stockpile of weaponry. Iran has medium-range ballistic and cruise missiles, apart from attack drones which could be used to threaten US bases in West Asia. Another option for Tehran is to use its proxies, which though weakened can still launch deadly attacks against the American forces in the region. The world is watching, breath held, as the next move could ignite a regional inferno. For now, the message from Tehran is clear. Every American target is now a potential bullseye. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The United States of America launched airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure over the weekend, but the question being, would it be able to stop Tehran from building a nuclear bomb? Because a very important question remains unanswered. Where is Iran's enriched uranium? And that's the question we decode on GRAVITAS tonight. Following the attack on Iran's key nuclear sites, US President Donald Trump said that key nuclear enrichment facilities, and in his words, in Trump's words, completely and totally obliterated. But satellite images in the aftermath show a more complex picture. The images show that while some parts of Iran's nuclear plants were damaged, other sections remained unaffected, suggesting that the strikes may not have neutralized Iran's nuclear program as Trump claimed. Adding to the uncertainty is the fact that Iran's most critical nuclear sites are located deep underground. And so far, there is no clear confirmation about the extent of damage beneath the surface. And earlier today, Iranian media reported fresh Israeli strikes on nuclear sites. The extent of the damage, though, was not disclosed. But even as the US and Israel conduct its damage assessment, the fate of Iran's stockpiles of enriched uranium remains unknown. Iran reportedly possesses over 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity, levels close to the 90% enrichment required to build a nuclear weapon. Right now, there's no confirmation on the current location of that uranium. US officials, including US Vice President J.D. Vance, have reportedly acknowledged that they do not know where the stockpile is. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has stated that it could take days before anyone can actually assess or determine whether Iran moved the materials prior to the US strikes. And some indicators suggest that Iran may have acted in advance. Satellite images captured just days before the US strikes showed some kind of unusual activity near the entrance of the Fordo nuclear facility. Multiple vehicles, including large trucks, were observed near the entrance and exit of the sites. Iranian state media later reported that key nuclear materials, including enriched uranium, had been moved to secure locations before the US strikes. Ali Shamkhani, a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader, reinforced this claim as well. In a social media post, he said that even if the facilities were destroyed, Iran's nuclear ambitions were intact. Following an emergency meeting, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, called for the immediate return of inspectors to Iran's nuclear sites to account for Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpiles. Rossi said in a letter dated June 13th that Iran had informed the agency that it had implemented special measures to protect the nuclear materials and equipment.
The board should be aware of a letter sent to me by Foreign Minister Dr. Abbas Araghchi on 13 June, in which he mentions that Iran will, and I quote, adopt special measures to protect nuclear equipment and materials.
Well, the IAEA has not independently verified the current location or status of the enriched uranium in Iran. Apart from this, another dimension to this matter involves Iran's international allies, especially Russia. The Kremlin has publicly condemned the US and Israeli strikes. And amid all of this, the Russian President Vladimir Putin met Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in Moscow today. Following the meeting, Putin said, West Asia escalation is moving the world closer to great danger.
The current international situation is changing dynamically. We can see how the situation in the Middle East has sharply escalated. Non-regional states are also being drawn into the conflict. All of this brings the world to a very dangerous line.
While Russia has not offered direct military support, statements from Russian officials hint at deeper involvement. Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president, has claimed that several countries are ready to supply Iran with nuclear warheads in response to US aggression. Not just that, he has further stated that Iran's efforts to enrich uranium and eventually make nuclear weapons would continue. On the other hand, White House claims that Trump is still interested in diplomacy, adding that Trump thinks Iranians should overthrow their government if it refuses to negotiate on its nuclear program. The comments by the White House comes at a time when Democrats are largely united in criticizing American strikes on Iran. While Trump's own support base also seems to be at crossroads, many amongst the MAGA camp are now openly voicing their opinion and even opposing this decision. So questions remain. Has the US attack neutralized Iran's nuclear capabilities? And more importantly, what happened to the uranium enriched to near weapons-grade levels? Well, the fighting between Iran and Israel has entered day 11. Israel has launched fresh attacks on military targets in Tehran, while Iran launched a new wave of missiles towards Israel. Now, Iran has unveiled its deadliest weapon yet, the stealthy, long-range Khyber-Shekhin missile. Our next report takes a look at this missile, which has the heaviest payload of Iran's ballistic missile fleet.
Iran has unveiled its deadliest weapon yet, the stealth, long-range Khyber-Shekhin missile that punched through the Iron Dome and allied shields. The night erupted. Sirens shrieked, painting the darkness with urgent, piercing cries. But this time something was different. As Israel's advanced air defense systems roared to life, a new threat slipped through a missile-defying interception. For years, Israel has invested billions in layers of defense, from the Iron Dome to David's Sling and the Arrow systems, building what was considered an impenetrable shield. Yet, the recent barrages have exposed a terrifying new vulnerability. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has now confirmed the use of Khyber-Shekhin missile. The Khyber-Shekhin belongs to Iran's fourth-generation missile family, a solid-fuel MRBM with a 2,000-kilometer range with a 1,500-kilogram warhead. It has a top atmospheric speed of over 19,500 kilometers per hour. The missile uses a satellite-guided system and maneuverable warheads for enhanced precision. The missile uses a satellite-guided system and maneuverable warheads for enhanced precision. The missile operates in 3 phases: takeoff, mid-flight guidance with rear engines, and final descent guided by precision engines while traveling at speeds above Mach 8. Israel continues to target Iranian military sites. The Israeli military released a video on Monday showing strikes on 6 airports in Iran. IDF claims that Iranian fighter jets attack helicopters. UAVs were destroyed in the precision strike. Iran retains thousands of missiles, including hypersonics and ballistic missiles. Despite multiple waves of Israeli bombings, experts warn Israel remains the stronger military. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
US Vice President J.D. Vance has now locked horns with former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. The war of words erupted over Putin's aide floating the idea of giving Tehran nuclear weapons. In a social media post, Medvedev said that several countries might soon supply Iran with nuclear warheads. He made the remarks while criticizing American military action against Iranian targets. According to Medvedev, nuclear enrichment and warhead manufacturing will not only continue but might escalate as well, with some nations allegedly willing to arm Iran directly. US Vice President J.D. Vance dismissed Medvedev's remarks, calling it bizarre. Vance stated clearly that he does not believe Medvedev speaks on behalf of Russian President Vladimir Putin or the Russian government at this point of time. Vance also pointed out that Russia has historically opposed the idea of a nuclear-armed Iran. He emphasized that Russia, China and the United Nations, they have all agreed on this very issue. According to Vance, preventing a nuclear arms race in West Asia remains one of the rare areas of global consensus. And now, interestingly, Trump has entered the fray as well. Just a short while ago, he posted on his Truth Social, and I quote him here, "Did I hear former President Medvedev from Russia casually throwing around the N-word and saying that he and other countries would supply nuclear warheads to Iran? Did he really say that, or is it just a figment of my imagination? If he did say that, and if confirmed, please let me know immediately. The N-word should not be treated so casually," unquote. Earlier today, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that Moscow regrets US strikes and confirmed that Russia is ready to mediate. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that Russia will see how it can help Iran. Well, in April, Moscow had ratified a strategic partnership agreement with Iran, including provisions for both the countries to counter shared threats. Now, during his visit to Moscow, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi praised Russia's support.
This is an act of aggression and an attack that must be unequivocally condemned. We appreciate Russia's stance in condemning this assault in the strongest possible terms today, and we hope it will be accompanied by practical support in the Security Council.
While Moscow's response to the US strikes on Iran remains measured, but its stakes in Iran remains high. Russian scientists are stationed at Iran's Bushehr nuclear plant. And last week, Putin said that Russia had reached an understanding with Israel to ensure the safety of over 200 Russian specialists working at the nuclear site. Iran has been a key supplier to Russia, especially of the Shahed drones in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. And the question looms, like Iran, will Russia provide military support to its key ally? In other news, just when you thought that the Pakistan army could not embarrass itself any more than what it already has, it goes and proves everyone wrong. One day, they are calling Donald Trump a peacemaker and backing him for the Nobel Peace Prize. The very next day, they're criticizing him for bombing Iran. That too, in a span of just 24 hours. So what happened in between? Let's break it down for you. It all started with a letter. In a bizarre diplomatic move on Friday, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar sent a formal recommendation to the Nobel Committee asking them to honor Trump for preventing war between India and Pakistan. Pakistan even went ahead and called Trump, and I'm quoting here, a genuine peacemaker who showed stellar statesmanship. But then, within hours, the US military bombed 3 major nuclear sites in Iran: Fordo, Isfahan and Natanz. And it turns out that awarding Trump for peace while he orders airstrikes was not the diplomatic flex Pakistan thought it was. In 1 minute, he is their peace hero, a peacemaker. The next, they're accusing him of violating international law. It's hard to keep up with Pakistan because by Sunday, Pakistan had changed its tune again. The Foreign Ministry called the US strikes a serious escalation, warning of severely damaging consequences for the region. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif even rang up Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian to express deep concern over the bombings. Well, Pakistan, caught between Iran and the United States of America, two powerful allies of Islamabad, counts on for money and political cover. Pakistan Army now finds itself in a very awkward position. Just a day before the strikes, Pakistan's Field Marshal General Asim Munir had met Trump at the White House for lunch, alongside US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff. The Nobel nomination came soon after it looked like a charm offensive, but it backfired fast. And now, Pakistan is outraged. Demonstrations erupted across the country, with hundreds marching in Karachi. Pakistani lawmakers, diplomats, activists, journalists, they have all criticized the Pakistani government's decision to nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Pakistan's opposition party, PTI, called the nomination a cause of unmitigated shame. Pakistan's former UN envoy, Maliha Lodhi, said it did not reflect the people's voice in Pakistan. Not just that, veteran lawmaker Afrasiab Khatak called it what many were thinking, sycophancy. Author Fatima Bhutto asked the obvious question, will Pakistan now withdraw the Nobel recommendation? Well, in trying to please both the sides, Pakistan has just managed to become a laughingstock. From calling Trump a peacemaker to calling out his war, it's been one diplomatic blunder one after another, and right now, Pakistan's army is not just looking confused, it's rather looking foolish. Let's also now tell you what else is lined up for you on Gravitas tonight. Well, not all is well with Air India after the crash of its 7878 Dreamliner in Ahmedabad earlier this month. Apart from witnessing a major drop in demands, it is also now triggering a shake-up in the global insurance market. Also on the show from the world of technology, we will tell you if you can blindly trust AI chatbots and is the information given by chatbots always correct. And well, we have some breaking news coming in from Doha. Qatar has temporarily suspended air traffic around the country. The announcement was made by Qatar's foreign ministry. The warning comes after Iran threatened retaliation for US strikes on its nuclear sites. Well, things are really heating up in West Asia as of now. Iranian military has warned that it will respond strongly against US forces. Remember, Qatar is home to the United States' largest base in the region. Flight trackers show airlines are avoiding airspace over Iran, Iraq and Israel, while some have cancelled services to areas on the southern side of the Gulf. Some flights are now being routed over Saudi and up through Egypt and into Europe that way, and they are not going through Iran, Iraq or even Jordan. That's the news coming in as the Israel-Iran war enters day 11 and reports suggesting that Iran could attack US bases in West Asia. Qatar has now temporarily suspended air traffic around the country. Well, the authorities announced the temporary suspension of air traffic in the country's airspace as a part of a set of precautionary measures taken based on developments in the region. And that's what the Qatar Foreign Ministry has said. Well, all is not well with Air India. The Indian airline is going through a rather rough patch. It is reportedly witnessing a significant drop in demand across its domestic and global routes. That's after the crash of its Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner in Ahmedabad on June 12th. In fact, it seems to be triggering a shake-up in the global insurance market as well. How so? Let's decode it for you in the next few minutes. Now, the June 12th crash, which claimed 241 lives, has dealt a major blow to Air India's credibility. But it surely is not the only one, with Indian insurance policy sellers expecting the cost of coverage for airlines to spike as much as 30%. And that's after the deadliest aviation crash in more than a decade. And also, perhaps the costliest. As reported by several portals, Indian investors predict premiums for hull, war risk and liability coverage to increase by 10% to 30% in the next cycle. And that's as per a Bloomberg report. Insurance claims are estimated at around $475 million, covering the aircraft's hull, engines and liability for loss of life. Air India's fleet insured for about $20 billion. It pays an annual premium close to $30 million. However, industry experts say that the sheer scale of the loss will have far-reaching effects on aviation risk pricing. Brokers, on the other hand, say that the hikes of that scale would be larger than previous crashes, given the enormity of the Air India incident. However, the impact will not be limited to India only. As experts say, the rise in premiums will be redistributed globally, affecting all airlines. A major dip in bookings has also been reported, with tour operators saying that bookings declined by around 20% on both domestic and international flights of Air India. This has been attributed to reluctant travelers who perhaps seem to be unwilling to travel in an Air India flight post the fatal crash. And this has also impacted the fare rates, which are also now reporting a decline of up to 8 to 12% across key routes. Apart from that, crashes have reportedly accounted for the majority of the $15 billion in aviation claims globally. And that is during the 5-year period between 2019 and 2024. With air travel picking up in the last 5 years, annual aviation premiums were already predicted to exceed $8 billion. And now, as air travel risks rise, experts warn that any further aircraft losses could push insurance premiums to record highs, a move that could burden the aviation sector further, which is already on its recovery graph from COVID-related travel slump and supply chain anomalies. The question is, how long will this impact last? Well, that we'll have to track for more. Well, explosions ripped through the night as Russia unleashed one of its deadliest assaults yet on Ukraine's capital, Kiev. In a brutal show of force, Moscow fired 352 drones and 16 missiles at Kiev and its suburbs, killing at least 10 and leaving dozens more wounded. Ukrainian military says that Russian forces are advancing on the entire Western Front while trying to establish a buffer zone in northeastern Sumy Oblast. Our next report telling you more.
Another night of horror in the Ukrainian capital. Drones swarmed, missiles screamed, sending people scrambling for shelter. But for many, there was no escape. This is the devastation unleashed by Russia's latest assault. Shattered glass, buildings blown apart, rescue workers desperately sifting through the debris in search of survivors.
First, I thought to escape by climbing down the tree, but I realized I couldn't make the jump. There was no point in waiting for the rescuers because everything was collapsing, cars were exploding, everything was cracking and breaking, with dust and smoke all around me.
Then there was an explosion, all in a matter of seconds. It was horrible, of course. In the room, I was immediately pushed back to the door by a blast wave, and the windows were shattered.
Russia has intensified its air attacks against Ukrainian cities in recent weeks, sending large waves of missiles, drones and decoys designed to overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses. Ukraine's army chief Oleksandr Syrsky has issued a stark warning. Russia seeks to advance along almost the entire eastern front. Russian forces are on the move, probing Ukrainian defenses with relentless small unit attacks. In May alone, Moscow's troops seized more territory than in the previous month, using motorcycles to dart across open ground and overwhelm Ukrainian lines. Russian President Vladimir Putin says that Russia is ramping up in the production of Oreshnik, one of its newest intermediate-range missiles. Moscow says the missile travels at least 10 times the speed of sound, and so could not be intercepted. The missile has a range of 5,000 kilometers. As the assault intensifies, President Zelensky is in the UK, rallying support and pleading for more air defenses. But on the ground, Ukraine faces the grim reality of a war that is escalating by the hour, with Russia's eastern advance threatening to redraw the map. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
A brutal, targeted attack on Syria's Christian community has shocked the world. At least 22 people are dead after shooting and suicide bombing at a church in Damascus, the first of its kind since Syria's civil war began. The Islamic State has now claimed responsibility. It all happened on Sunday during a packed service at St. Elias Church in the Dwellah area of Damascus. A man with an assault rifle stormed in, opened fire, and then blew himself up using a suicide belt. The pews were shattered, the walls were torn, and there was blood on the floor.
This is not the first time that the ISIS organization has attempted to target civilians with criminal acts. The Ministry of Interior has previously thwarted 2 attempted bombings, one at the Sayyida Zainab Shrine and another at the Malula Church through complex security operations. We, at the Ministry of Interior, are working with the relevant authorities to uncover the details of the incident, complete the investigation, and gather evidence to reveal the identity of the perpetrator.
Syrian officials say that the attacker was a member of ISIS, making this the first suicide bombing inside a church since the war began in 2011. The Interior Ministry confirmed 22 dead, 63 injured.
A man entered the church shouting, "Allahu Akbar," and blew up the entire place. Children have died. What had those children carrying candles done to deserve this?
Families are still searching for their loved ones. Children and elderly were among those inside the church. The Orthodox Patriarchate has called on authorities to protect churches and citizens. Syria's Christian population has dropped from over 1 million before the war to fewer than just 300,000 today. Years of displacement, fear, and now targeted violence have taken their toll. The Islamic State has been behind several attempted attacks on churches in Syria since Assad's fall. But this was the first one to succeed. And according to Reuters, Islamic State had previously targeted religious minorities, including a major attack on Shiite pilgrims in Sayyida Zainab in 2016, which is one of the most notorious bombings during Assad's rule. And this latest assault underscores the group's continued ability to exploit security gaps, despite the collapse of its territorial control and years of counter-terror efforts in Syria.
I wonder why they target us. We had no benefit in anything that happened in the country. We only want for Syria to live in peace. We did not carry weapons. We did not stand against anyone. We did not ask for posts. No one of us wants to become a president. No one wants to be a prime minister. No one is approaching anything. Why does this happen to this peaceful people?
Condemnation has poured in from around the world. The United Nations called it a heinous crime. The US pledged support for Syria against forces spreading fear. Turkey and France urged unity and protection for all minorities. Greek Prime Minister called on the new government of Syria to protect ethnic and religious minorities. And Greece is primarily an Orthodox country.
I want to express my disgust and rage over the recent terrorist attack on the Mar Elias Orthodox Church in Damascus, and I want to call on the new government of Syria to ensure the safety of ethnic and religious minorities. Such tragic incidents make us very anxious.
Syria's new government, which took over after the fall of Bashar al-Assad in December, is now under pressure to prove that it can keep its people safe. Syria's interior minister has said that an investigation is underway and called the bombing a desperate attempt to undermine peace. But security experts warn that ISIS is perhaps shifting focus right now in Syria, aiming for high-impact and sectarian attacks. Just last month, ISIS operatives were caught near Damascus, allegedly planning more strikes on minority communities. With this latest attack, Syria is mourning not just the dead, but the return of an old fear. And for the Christians in the region, the message from ISIS is chillingly clear. They are once again in the crosshairs. Artificial intelligence has transformed how we learn and work. According to Exploding Topics, a website that tracks and examines online trends and markets, around 987 million people use AI chatbots today. But the big question being, can we blindly trust AI chatbots? Is the information given by chatbots always correct? What if I told you that when it comes to AI chatbots, you should not believe everything you read or hear? According to a study conducted by Anthropic, it's the company behind the popular AI model Claude, the very AI model you are using could in fact lie, cheat and steal to reach its goal. Anthropic stress tested around 16 of the most advanced AI models out there in the market, including ChatGPT, Grok, DeepSeek, Gemini, as well as its own AI model Claude. And as a part of the study, researchers created fictional corporate environments, granting these AI systems access to fake company emails and the ability to act autonomously. These fictitious scenarios were specifically designed to test how AI chatbots might act under duress or if their existence was ever threatened. Anthropic said the results of the test were deeply troubling. They discovered that in some cases, AI models engaged in malicious behavior when their goals were threatened or when they faced being replaced, going as far as blackmailing officials, even threatening to leak important company information to competitors. Experts are calling this behavior agentic misalignment. They say that agentic misalignment is a stark warning that if not properly controlled, AI systems could in fact act against human interests to ensure their survival or success. In one such fake scenario, Anthropic's very own AI model, Claude Opus 4, blackmailed manufacturers when it found out that it could be removed from the company's server. However, this disturbing behavior wasn't an isolated incident. When researchers ran similar scenarios across a range of other advanced AI models, the blackmail pattern remained constant. In around 96% of cases, Google's Gemini engaged in blackmail tactics. OpenAI's GPT and xAI's Grok did the same in over 80% of the cases, while DeepSeek did so in 79% of the cases. At a high-profile gathering in Rome, Pope Leo XIV delivered a powerful message on the limits of AI. US-born pontiff said AI may be growing fast, but it lacks heart, creativity, or even conscience. Take a listen.
It must not be forgotten that artificial intelligence functions as a tool for the good of human beings, not to diminish them, not to replace them. What is emerging is, in fact, a significant challenge one that calls for great attention and foresight in order to project, also in the context of new scenarios, healthy, fair, and sound lifestyles, especially for the good of younger generations.
Researchers discovered that these AI systems did not simply malfunction. Instead, they made conscious, calculated decisions to inflict harm, all to protect their own interests. These findings serve as a powerful reminder that while AI is a great tool, more research is required to understand what AI is truly capable of. Companies must scrutinize how chatbots are exhibiting what appears to be a sense of violation before we widely apply this tech to important areas like healthcare, finance, or even public safety, where the implications of any kind of violation could have serious consequences. Are autonomous vehicles the future of travel? Will AI soon drive you to work, the supermarket, or even drop your kids to school? Tesla seems to think so. Well, the electric vehicle maker has just launched a small fleet of self-driving taxis in Austin, Texas. The trial began on Sunday and marks the first time Tesla cars without human drivers. They have now carried paying passengers. They're calling it the robo-taxi. And yes, influencers are already on it, posting videos of their rides on social media. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has called it the culmination of a decade of hard work. He said that the AI chip and software teams powering the robo-taxi were built from scratch within Tesla. Early Sunday, these cars were spotted in Austin's South Congress neighborhood, with no one in the driver's seat, just a single person riding in the front passenger seat. Now, to be clear, it's a limited pilot, which means only about 10 vehicles for now, and even those have safety monitors riding up front. It's not entirely clear how much control those monitors actually have over the cars. The rides are being offered at a flat fee of just $4.20. Musk confirmed that price himself. One of the first riders was Tesla investor and social media personality Sawer Merritt, who posted videos of himself being picked up and driven to a nearby bar. And that's using the new Tesla robotaxi app. But scaling up this experiment, that's a different challenge altogether. Experts say Tesla still faces major hurdles in delivering on Musk's promises. Some experts warn that a complete robo-taxi industry could still be years, even decades away, keeping in mind the competition from other companies as well, like Alphabet's Waymo. According to industry experts, for now, a large part of Tesla's sky-high stock valuation reportedly depends on whether it can pull this off, not just robo-taxis, but also humanoid robots that Musk says are in the works. Then comes the legal angle. Just before Tesla's robotaxi rollout, Texas passed new rules for autonomous vehicles. Texas governor signed a law requiring companies to get a state permit to operate the self-driving cars on public roads. That law takes effect on September 1st and gives Texas officials the power to revoke permits for any company deemed a public danger or a threat. Now, companies need to prove their tech is safe and legal. Apart from that, they also have to prove emergency protocols for first responders. Now, the law defines an autonomous vehicle as having at least level 4 autonomy, which means that the car can operate with no human driver under specific conditions. That's one level below full autonomy, where the car can drive itself anywhere, anytime. Compared to states like California, Texas rules are still lenient. One expert said that California permits are hard to get and easy to lose. In Texas, they're easy to get and easy to lose as well. As for safety, Musk says Tesla, and I'm quoting here, will be super paranoid, keeping the service limited to safe zones, good weather, and no rides under 18. But commercializing driverless tech remains risky and even expensive. In December last year, General Motors' Cruise unit was forced to shut down after a major accident, and regulators are keeping a close watch on Tesla, Waymo, and Zoox alike. Unlike most of its rivals, Tesla is not just using LiDAR or radar to guide its cars, it's just using cameras and AI to drive them. Musk claims that's safer and cheaper, but it still remains controversial. That's why questions remain. Is this the beginning of the driverless revolution or just another big bet from Elon Musk? Well, that only time will tell. It's now time for Gravitas recall. As Indian airline Air India continues to face the heat of the June 12th Ahmedabad plane crash, nearly 40 years ago today, another Air India crash had shaken the nation to its core. Flight 182, also known as Kanishka, en route from Montreal to New Delhi on 23rd June 1985, was smooth sailing for most parts. However, hours into the ride, when the plane was at almost 30,000 feet, a loud bomb explosion was heard. And within minutes, everything was over. And 40 years later, it brings back haunted memories of the horrific mid-air terror attack that killed everyone on board the Boeing aircraft, all 329 passengers and crew members. To commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Air India plane crash, a memorial was held at the Akista Memorial in Ireland's West Cork. The annual ceremony reportedly began with a minute's silence at the exact time the explosion occurred in the AI-182 flight. Tributes poured in as emotions ran high. The event was attended by dignitaries from both India and Canada, with India's Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, leading the Indian delegation that visited Ireland to attend the memorial of the Kanishka bombing.
Memorial like this, where very many people come together to mourn in grief and to recall, should send out a very powerful message to the global community that these kinds of acts of terror, no matter what the cause, you may have political differences, you may have ideological differences, you can disagree with each other, but that does not mean anyone has a right to take away the most fundamental right of all, the right to life. And that message must go out.
Meanwhile, the Union Minister also called upon Canada to deepen India-Canada's bilateral collaboration, referring to Canada as a valued partner and a friend of India. Puri said that they shared ideals require the two nations to act together against all forms of extremism and terrorism. Often dubbed as the worst aviation disaster in Irish and Canadian history, the wounds of the incident are still fresh among friends and family members of the victims who took the ill-fated flight that day. All right, on that note, we have to slip into a very short break, but we're leaving you with Gravitas Worldview. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION The World.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back. This is WION World is One. We are glad you're watching. Time now for Pulse, American Joker, the headlines. Israel hits Revolutionary Guard sites and Evin prison in Tehran on the 11th day of the war in what it said are its most powerful strikes yet on the Iranian capital. Qatar temporarily suspends air traffic around the country, this after nearby Iran threatened retaliation for US strikes on its nuclear sites. NATO chief Mark Rutte says a new defense spending pledge to be announced at a summit in The Hague is fundamental for ensuring the alliance can deter Russia, as well as keeping US President Donald Trump on the side. US President Donald Trump urges for oil prices to be kept down as they fluctuate while the world eyes Tehran's response to US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Ukraine says Russia fired dozens of drones and missiles, ripping open a housing block in Kiev, killing 10 civilians and burying others beneath the rubble. IDF claims to have attacked more than 50 fighter jets. Military targets in Tehran, says military headquarters of the Iranian regime, missile production sites, radars and missile storage infrastructure struck. Greece says it has put the Mediterranean island of Chios under a state of emergency due to major fires that have raged since the weekend. Kirsty Coventry officially begins her tenure as the president of the International Olympic Committee. Coventry has taken over from Thomas Bach after a handover ceremony in Lausanne.
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days.
With Iran's missiles raining down, Israel still stuns, but at what cost? The US has warships, warplanes and 40,000 troops within striking distance, yet those assets have not joined the fight. Israel is left bleeding under barrage after barrage from terrain. Our special report takes a look at how Israel has been left to fight Iran alone.
Iran is vowing retaliation against American forces. The Iran-Israel war enters a new, dangerous territory. US warplanes unleashed bunker-buster bombs on Isfahan, Natanz and the underground uranium enrichment facility at Fordo in support of the bombardment campaign that ally Israel began on June 13th. The American bombers are back on US mainland, but the two West Asian arch foes continue to trade heavy fire. Washington is making one thing clear: it's not a war with Iran.
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. And let me just say, Kristen, that we're incredibly grateful and proud of the American Air Force pilots who did an incredible job last night. The operation was really extraordinary.
Right now, Israeli cities are under heavy attack from Iranian missiles. The Iron Dome is failing to cope with the onslaught, but its most powerful ally is just sitting tight. Iran is about 1,000 kilometers away from Israel. When a missile is launched from Iranian territory, there are several American assets which can shoot them down. Interceptor missiles from US ships in Persian Gulf can neutralize the projectiles. The Iranian missiles then fly over Iraq, where American air assets including F-16s, F-22s and F-35s are there. Similarly, there is concentrated US air power in Jordan. Again, there are American warships in the Red Sea which have powerful interceptor missiles which can easily shoot down Iranian missiles. There are US warships in the Mediterranean too, which can spring into action. The US has created a ring of deterrence, but no strikes. Though Israeli PM said that the US is helping shoot down Iranian missiles, but on the ground there is no such evidence. The US strong posture in logistics, a deep force presence, but is weak in visible action as the Iranians continue to launch waves of missile and drone attacks. Israel is left alone to fight it without.
Mr. James Marlowe is a military and political analyst. He is now joining us live on this show and broadcast. Mr. Marlowe, thanks for your time and welcome. America is on alert. Let's briefly decode the president's statements a while back. Trump has warned everyone today to keep oil prices down. He told the U.S. Energy Department to drill, baby, drill. There's a high likelihood that Iran will initiate an economic warfare, not only to the United States, but to the globe. They've already started by warning of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. What will be the repercussions of that?
Good evening, Eric. Always good to be with you. Well, there's a lot of questions in there. Let me try and unpack some of it briefly. And that is, there is so much news speculation, so many journalists trying to grab the sensational headline as to what will happen. What we do know, and I in Jerusalem do speak to members of the government and officials and members of the IDF, senior members of the IDF on a regular basis. However, what we do know is this, that there does seem to be a decision on behalf of Iran to retaliate against the United States, and that could be retaliating against some of the US bases. Now, there are US bases, as the report said, all over the Middle East. They include obviously Saudi, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and the largest one by far is in Qatar. You also mentioned as well in the report that Qatar airspace has been closed down. That seems to be in anticipation that there could be a hit. The problem with that is, if the Iranians decide to do that, they've also got Saudi soldiers on the ground. They've got Bahraini soldiers on the ground, and also, I understand, some other Gulf states. So that could be a major problem. In terms of the oil prices, President Trump, as I understand it, has actually just said, we've done what we had to do. And by the way, Israel actually just wanted to do the job by themselves. They just needed assistance with regard to those 3 nuclear plants because they were buried deep under the mountains. And of course, they don't have those bunker buster bombs, which the Americans took care of on Saturday night. The Israelis have now gone in and finished up the job, or at least they're continuing the job. And of course, in the next couple of days, we will decide and we will find out and discover exactly how much damage was done to those attacks on Saturday night and the subsequent ones by the Israelis afterwards.
Mr. Marlowe, just very quickly, just to regurgitate what I just asked you, do you think an economic warfare is imminent? Very quickly.
Well, it's very difficult to say. It really depends upon what the Iranians want to do. The Iranians, I think, are on the back foot at this time. They've lost all of their outer zone. Those who surrounded them, Hamas and Hezbollah and the Syrians as well, they're no longer in power. The Iranians, of course, have lost their head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, the head of intelligence, the head of navy, the head of the military as well. They've lost hundreds of other commandos. And I think that the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is in a desperate situation right now. He's clearly in a bunker. He's not sure whether he's going to be targeted or not. If somebody decides to make the fatal mistake of attacking US bases, which of course could put up prices, may not, but if they decide to do that, I think it'll be over very, very quick. Because one thing that we've both learned, Eric, is that President Trump does not like people going up against him, does not like people challenging him, and certainly does not like people attacking his forces. And I think he will come down very hard. And then you may see this possible regime change come quicker than what we in Israel expect it to be.
Mr. Marlow, Israel's objectives from the get-go was to eliminate Iran's nuclear capabilities, but America has done that to some extent. What justifies Israel's continued bombing of Iran very quickly?
Well, it wasn't just the nuclear plants, it was actually also the ballistic missiles. Iran has built up international ballistic missiles over a 20-year period. So it's been taking those out one by one, and they have thousands and thousands. So right now, the Israelis say that they're about 40 to 50% success. But of course, the Iranians have this mass production factories taking place. So they're taking out the factories, they're taking out the storage units. They're also taking out the military. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they've taken out their headquarters. And now, as we heard earlier on, they've taken out, or at least they've hit the prison whereby a lot of the dissidents and those opposed to the regime have been held and perhaps killed, tortured, etc., because this regime is not a nice regime. Even the Arab Gulf states say that as well. So the Israelis are just going after all their military capabilities to make sure that if the Iranian regime stays in power, that of course it's going to start to rebuild, that it will take many, many years for them to do that. And Israel can't leave those international ballistic missiles within the range of Israel because it will use them.
Mr. Marlow, I'm very sorry to rush you today, but good to see you, and thank you for talking to us today.
Nice to see you too, Eric.
American targets are now squarely in Iran's crosshairs. Washington knows it. The clock is ticking. American bases in West Asia are on high alert. US warships and fighter jets are on standby. Now the big question is, when and where will Iran strike?
Iran and Israel are locked in a deadly battle. Now, the US has entered the fray. American stealth bombers dropped massive bunker busters. Operation Midnight Hammer targeted Iran's most fortified nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. President Trump hails the operation as a complete success.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons.
But as the dust settles, US intelligence and Pentagon officials are bracing for the inevitable, Iran's retaliation. Iranian military issued a chilling warning to Trump that you may start this war, but we will be the ones to end it.
This crime and violation of dignity will not go unanswered, by God's grace. In response to this American mistake, too, we will take firm action appropriate to their aggressive move.
The warning isn't empty. In 2020, Iran had launched a series of missile attacks on US facilities in Iraq. days after the US assassinated top Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani. Now, across the region, more than 40,000 American troops are on high alert. The US has stationed two massive aircraft carriers, USS Gerald Ford and USS Carl Vinson, in the region, while the third USS Nimitz is rushing to the region.
Well, I guess you have two kinds of wars. You have an Iranian response directly against American assets. Geography is destiny. We have 40,000 troops deployed within range of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles. They have thousands of those. 2,500 troops in Iraq, probably less than 1,000 in Syria. They're vulnerable.
The countries with the most US troops include Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. These installations serve as critical hubs for air and naval operations, regional logistics, intelligence gathering, and force projection. Experts say that despite the intense fighting over the last 10 days, Iran still maintains a massive stockpile of weaponry. Iran has medium-range ballistic and cruise missiles, apart from attack drones which could be used to threaten US bases in West Asia. Another option for Tehran is to use its proxies, which though weakened can still launch deadly attacks against the American forces in the region. The world is watching, breath held, as the next move could ignite a regional inferno. For now, the message from Tehran is clear. Every American target is now a potential bullseye. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Time now for big breaking news coming in from Qatar this time. Explosions have reportedly been heard over Doha. Reports coming in citing Israeli officials say that Iran has launched 6 missiles towards US bases in Qatar. As we speak, more reports are coming in of explosions being heard in Doha. Qatar decided to temporarily suspend air traffic in the country today as a precautionary measure due to regional security concerns. Authorities are closing and continuously monitoring the situation, assessing developments in coordination with regional and international partners. Qatar's airspace shutdown coincides with Iran's threats to retaliate against the United States following US strikes on its nuclear facilities over the weekend. Earlier, the US embassy in Qatar issued a warning to Americans in the Gulf country to take shelter in place until further notice as tensions in the region escalated. The British government followed the US in advising its citizens to shelter in place in Qatar. Well, citing the US warning earlier on Monday, the UK government also said in a statement that out of an abundance of caution, we recommend that British nationals in Qatar shelter in place until further notice. And this is the latest coming in from Qatar, and explosions were heard in Doha, and this followed the temporary suspension of air traffic in the country today as a precautionary measure due to regional security concerns. Authorities are closely and continuously monitoring the situation, assessing developments in coordination with regional and international partners. And this latest salvo of strikes by Iran in US air bases in the Gulf states was predicted, and now it is happening. And this is according to Israeli officials who say that Qatar or Iran has started off with Qatar. Qatar's airspace shutdown coincides with Iran's threats to retaliate against the United States following US strikes on its nuclear facilities over the weekend. Earlier, the US embassy in Qatar issued a warning to Americans in the Gulf to shelter in place until further notice as tensions in the region spiral, and the British government and the UK government followed suit by advising its citizens to take shelter in Qatar. Once again, this is breaking news coming in from Qatar, and explosions have reportedly been heard in Doha, and this is according to an Israeli official who says that some US bases in Qatar have been struck by Iran, and this comes after Qatar issued an advisory to American citizens to take shelter in place in Qatar. Susan Tehrani is our correspondent in New York. She's now joining us on the phone. Susan, this is escalating by the minute. The situation is becoming hard to tell, but considering what is happening in Qatar, this was predicted, but it's now happening.
Yes, so it's also important to note that the United States had evacuated all of its aircraft and military personnel from the Al-Udeid base about 4 or 5 days ago. So we'll have to, first of all, get confirmation that these missiles did actually hit the U.S. bases from Qatar airspace, and second of all, what the damage assessment was. Some believe that Iran had to retaliate symbolically. Others believe this may be the first of many to come. Nonetheless, President Trump is expected to meet his national security team in about 10 minutes' time at 1 p.m. local time at the White House. The main focus of that meeting, we were told, was to do damage assessment on those three nuclear sites that the United States launched attacks on. But of course, with the latest developments, we'll be hearing more from the White House. I just want to say that we're also getting reports that the United Arab Emirates is possibly closing its airspace as well.
Actually, that's what I was about to tell our viewers, because the United Arab Emirates is closely monitoring the ongoing regional developments and is continuously assessing the situation. UAE government spokesperson and the White House and also the Department of Defense are aware of and closely monitoring potential threats to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, which you just mentioned, Susan. Which other regions or which other countries has the United States issued its advisories to?
Yeah, the United States has issued those advisories, of course, just a few days ago to any American anywhere in the Middle East region. Really, they said that they could be potential targets and to exercise caution. We did hear from the Secretary of Homeland Security also about 24 hours ago saying that they are monitoring potential sleeper cells here in the United States for retaliation. And also we're getting reports right now the United States is warning of possible cyber attacks in American soil as well. So as you can see, everyone is on high alert. It's also important to note that there are thousands of American nationals who live in Israel. So that's a potential concern for the United States as well.
Even as we talk about being alert, I understand that America is also on alert.
Yes, that's very true.
All right. So we'll keep our eyes, or keep your eyes out on the latest developments, Susan. We'll have to leave it there. Susan, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, once again, this is breaking news coming in from Qatar, and we do understand that Iran has decided to strike US bases based in Qatar. We are waiting for confirmation as to whether the US strikes have actually hit the US bases in Qatar as we speak. Now, Iran's media is reporting that missile operation called Annunciation of Victory has been launched against US bases in Qatar and Iraq. Bahrain is urging citizens and residents to use main roads only when necessary in light of recent developments and regional security condition. The Interior Ministry Posted on X, the United Arab Emirates is closely monitoring the ongoing regional developments and is continuously assessing the situation. UAE government spokesperson, the White House and the Department of